That'd be great.
All right, one moment then.
So I'm Joe Raycraft. What's up? Okay. Joe Raycraft from the SBA. I'm the Export Finance Manager for the New England region, and happy to be here today to talk to hopefully some companies that are either existing exporters or export ready, and might be able to benefit from some of the programs of the SBA. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to be talking about the STEP grant program and also the three export loan programs that the SBA has to offer to small businesses. Just starting out first with this slide, just to give the audience a sense of how SBA defines exporting. It's an export transaction. It's the production and payment associated with the sale of goods or services to a foreign buyer. So you can see that it's got to be and we'll go through some of the other SBA eligibility requirements, but you can see that an export doesn't reference US made, so there's no US content requirements of the SBA, which is, makes it a little bit more flexible for companies like distributors or wholesalers of goods that may not be of US content. And then the other point I want to highlight here is indirect exporting. The SBA considers you an exporter if you're selling a product or service to another US company that in turn exports your product or service as they incorporate it into their own. So that's a little bit of a distinction. You can move to the next slide. I mentioned the STEP grant program. It refers to the State Trade Expansion Program. Every state, or most states, have a program. It's partially funded by the SBA, and it provides reimbursable grants to help eligible small businesses to expand in the international market. Every state's a little bit different. Connecticut has a program that provides up to, I want to say it's about $15,000 a year. That can be in terms of grant funding. And you can see from the screen, there's a number of eligible uses, the most popular being participation in international trade shows, but it can also be used for translations or international marketing materials, product compliance testing, market research reports, if you're looking to expand into a specific region of the world. You can visit the SBA website here. I've referenced sba.gov/step, and there you can find the information and application requirements for the state that you're in. I assume most of the participants are from Connecticut, so you can just click on the Connecticut link, and that will bring you to the Connecticut program, and where it highlights the various application requirements and some guidance on the program in terms of what qualifies and what may not. Next slide, please. In terms of the export loan programs, these are the three programs that SBA offers, and these are all provided through the banks. SBA is not a direct lender. We provide guarantees to lenders. So if you're looking for a small business loan, you're likely talking to an SBA lender, and these are just some of the options that a lender has for you as an exporter. I'll hit these briefly, and then we'll go into a little bit deeper dive into the Export Express program. The first one, Export Express, that's kind of the most flexible of our loan programs. It provides up to $500,000 in funding, and it's flexible in terms of the ability to finance either term goods, term loans for equipment or longer term assets. It can also be structured as a short-term line of credit for working capital purposes. You can see here some of the common uses. Export development activity, fixed assets can be used for business acquisitions and for the issuance of standby letters of credit. We'll talk a little bit about later on. Again, ideal for smaller companies that are new or just starting out in exporting. The second program is Export Working Capital, and this is specific for working capital needs. It's not a term-based financing, it's short-term financing to support specific export transactions. Typically used for more experienced exporters that have higher working capital needs, as the maximum loan size is up to $5 million. And then third is our international trade loan. And this is purely for term financing. So this would be for companies that are expanding their export markets, and they're in need of maybe some equipment, or maybe they need to expand their building, purchase a building, refinance existing debt, but this program can be used for that purpose. It does require an export business plan, and that's where you can contact your local SCORE advisor or SBDC advisor to assist with your business planning needs. And for this year, up until September 30th, there is no SBA guarantee fees on any loans that are $350,000 or less. So good time for SBA loans. Next slide. This slide just gives you an overview of how our programs can be used for the international sales cycle. So on the left side, for financing growth, those are specifically, longer term assets. So that would be a term loan for fixed assets or permanent working capital equipment. And then you've got the pre-shipment and post-shipment financing. That tends to be more of a short-term revolving line of credit to support those specific export orders and export receivables. Next slide. So here's what's eligible for SBA and what's not eligible. So I'll just kind of hit these one by one. General SBA eligibility, it's got to be a US-based company. It's got to be considered a small business. That's determined based on your industry code, and it's based on either number of employees or revenue level. Must be a for-profit business, has to be 51% US owned, and no prior loss to the government. So if you've got a prior student loan that was defaulted on, that would exclude you from SBA financing. Other eligibility things that are important: personal guarantees. They're always required of owners of 50 or 20% or more. A company, typically, we're looking for at least 1 year in business. If you've got less than 12 months in business, then we'd like to see prior successful business experience. We talked about direct or indirect exporter already. Licensed military and defense exports are eligible, and we don't have the 51% US content rule as well. And any of the loan proceeds from SBA, they must be used exclusively for the benefit of the US operation. So if your company has a division or a separate entity overseas, the financing cannot be used to support that entity. Doesn't mean you're ineligible, it just means we can't finance that overseas operation. And then in terms of some things that aren't eligible, can't sell to prohibited countries. You can check on Exim Bank's country limitation schedule on their website, but right now you can see Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Sudan, Syria. Those would be the countries that are where US companies are prohibited from doing business. And Russia, for example, right now would probably fall on that list. Again, it can't be an OPEC sanctioned party. And then there's a couple of industry codes that aren't eligible: accommodations like hotels and gas stations. And as I mentioned, financing operations outside the US is not eligible. Next slide. So here's a little bit deeper dive into that Export Express program. This is a really nice program because it is so flexible. It kind of does everything in one. It is limited by its $500,000 maximum loan size, but again, it can be used for short-term working capital needs or longer-term, fixed asset needs. You can see here on the slide the various uses of proceeds. And one thing I mentioned before was standby letters of credit. So your line of credit can be used to issue a standby letter of credit. The most common use would be an advance payment guarantee, where if you receive an order from an overseas business and you negotiate a significant down payment under the contract, that overseas buyer may request an advance payment guarantee or standby letter of credit, which would allow them to get their money back, that advance payment, if your company is unable to execute under the contract. And I do see that more and more during COVID. We've seen a pretty big increase in the use of the programs for standby letters of credit. And this program is delegated authority to the lenders. So the lenders can approve these loans on their own. So their turnaround time is typically pretty quick. And one of the additional requirements is that the exporter needs to fill out an export questionnaire, which we'll cover in one of the next slides. You can move to the next. This just kind of gives you a sense of the maximum maturities depending on the use of proceeds. So lines of credit, we can have up to a 7-year maturity, permanent working capital, and term related assets, get up to 5 to 10 years, etc. Next slide. So I mentioned the export questionnaire, and what it is, it's really kind of what I refer to as like a check the box, fill in the blank, almost like a mini business plan that really helps the lender get an idea of what your export business is and what it involves. So you need to answer whether you're a direct or indirect exporter, describe the product or service that you're selling, how long have you been, doing exporting, what's your projection for revenues over the next 12 months, where are you selling to, what are the specific countries, how are you going to use the loan proceeds, and then what are the export benefits, how will they help the company, build its export business over time. And will the loan help to enter a new market? Maybe you're looking to expand into a specific market. That's good justification for an export loan. And then finally, there's a business certification. The applicant just needs to sign off on the questionnaire. Next slide. So these are just some common uses of an export loan. We've talked about a lot of these. So if you're looking for some permanent working capital for marketing or export development activities, an export loan could be a good use. We also talked about the STEP program, which is a grant program that could offset some of these costs. So you definitely want to look at that. You can grow your sales by extending payment terms to overseas buyers. By extending payment terms to your buyers overseas, sometimes they will buy more inventory, and our line of credit can be used to kind of support that working capital gap that's created. Purchase order financing is also a popular use. I mentioned that with the standby letters of credit, where you sign a big purchase order, you get an advance payment from the customer, and then the customer requests that advance payment guarantee. That is typically dealt with using a standby letter of credit. And then term financing, if you've got growing business and you need some machinery and equipment or other fixed assets, we can assist with some term financing for that. Next. Just going to wrap up here with two loan discussions, just to kind of give you some specific examples of some recent loans that were done. This is a small video production company, literally a kind of a mom and pop company. Small, they've grown over the past couple of years, probably up to 8 or 10 employees. They were looking for some export financing to support the service that they provided to some large European media companies. So we provided them with a term loan for some equipment that they needed, video type equipment, to help execute the contract, and then some working capital just to help with the payment of salaries, travel, whatever they needed to do to produce this documentary video. The European buyers did require standby letters of credit as an advance payment guarantee, so the line was used for that purpose. And we also did a little bit of refinancing of some existing debt that the company had. And this company also, besides using the Export Express program, also utilized the STEP grant program to participate in an international trade show. Next. And this is another example of how Export Express was used, short-term working capital example. This is a food exporter, specifically seafood. It's a woman-owned business, and she was gaining a lot more orders from her overseas customers. The suppliers that she purchased from required either prepayment or very short payment terms. So she needed that working capital in order to pay her suppliers early to get access to the goods so she could ship them to her customers. So it was an ideal use of the program. And she also utilized export credit insurance through the Export-Import Bank. And that's something Rich Foy is going to talk about in a little bit to help mitigate the payment risk. So that credit insurance was in place with specific customers. So in the event that those customers defaulted on their payment to the company, they had insurance in place to cover up to 90% of the invoice. The outcome, again, was an Export Express line of credit, and this was also a company that benefited from the STEP program and using it for international trade show participation. Next slide. So finally, here we have, what do you need to apply for an SBA loan? Here's kind of some of the general requirements. There's an SBA application form. You need to provide, background information and personal financial statements for the guarantors, which would be those individuals that own 20% or more. Business financial statements for the company, tax returns, ownership structure, who's the specific owners of the business, any business certification that you may have, debt schedule showing all your existing bank loans, resume for each principal owner, and also key management is good to include, overview of the business history, kind of the challenges the business had, opportunities that they have, and why the SBA loan is necessary. Give a good description of why the financing is needed. And then I mentioned the export questionnaire or a realistic export business plan is required for the export loans. So you can move to the next slide. I'll let Rich talk. This is a program I mentioned, the Export Working Capital for the SBA. Exim Bank has a very similar program, and they, we don't really compete. They kind of, each customer, depending on their need, would either fit better within the Exim program or the SBA program. But I'll let Rich talk a little bit about the Exim Bank Working Capital, and then I can, just fill in the blanks on the SBA's program.
Sorry about the switch. We're working remotely, but in a cooperative effort here. So Joe did a great job explaining the working capital in general, the guarantee, how they work. We have a very similar program. The differences between the two really come down to our capacity to handle defense-related products, and a bank's desire. Well, obviously, U.S. content requirement as well is in place for Exim Bank. So I'll go, the working capital programs, as he explained, are virtually the same. So I'll leave it at that. The next slide will go over general requirements working with Exim Bank. So can you advance, please? So eligibility requirements for Exim. We need 3 years in business, although for our insurance programs, we can accept time in business. less than that, but for all loans, 3 years in business. Financial statements, tax returns, and currently we have a requirement for a DUNS number, although that is being changed over to a new number that the government has put in place, a SAM number, I believe it's called. For working capital, again, we have, and short-term insurance, 50% or greater U.S. content requirement. And for medium term, we can support up to 85% of the U.S. content, or whatever the U.S. content of that deal is. Next slide. So my time here is going to be focused on our export credit insurance, which I think is very important. Joe kind of handled the loan portion of things, so I'll just dig into one of the big export challenges that folks come up with is payment terms. Buyers, they expect and want open payment terms, and the concern, of course, is whether you as the exporter will get paid. So what we do is we put an export credit insurance program together. And this allows you to confidently extend credit to your foreign buyers without fear of non-payment, because we're backing you up. Next slide. I'll get into some of the details here. When you engage in any export or transaction where you have a payment, if you have open account terms, you as a seller, you have a very high risk. You're essentially exporting your product in hopes that you are going to get paid. On the flip side, the buyer has a very low risk because he's got the ability to receive, sell the goods before he has to pay you. Flipping that on its head, cash in advance is a high risk for the buyer, and even more of an issue is its limiting effect on your relationship. Obviously, it's a low risk for you as a seller if you're getting paid in advance. So we're going to try to flatten this out. Next slide, please. By offering open payment terms, you allow your buyer to receive and sell the goods before they pay you. So what that does essentially is gives them the ability to order more, to build the market for your product, and ultimately grow the acceptance of your product in the market. This export credit insurance really can be used in, or has 3 different effects. Risk protection, obviously, if your foreign buyer fails to pay you, we pay you. As a sales tool, it should not be understated that this is a very effective sales tool for the reason I just mentioned. Your buyer can receive and sell the goods with really no risk to them before they have to pay you. So this is very important when they can sell and increase their revenue. And as a financing aid, when you have an insured receivable and you go to your bank, they're more likely to advance on that receivable when it's insured. So it increases your borrowing base as you're working with your lender. Obviously, when you're extending credit, cash flow becomes a concern. So financing becomes more of an issue for you. Next slide. The risks covered on policy with Exim Bank are commercial and political. Commercial risks include insolvency, bankruptcy, protracted default. So this is payment outside of what's agreed to in the contract. Political risks also should not be understated because war, revolution, insurrection, cancellation of an import or export license. These are all valid reasons why people won't pay you, and they're covered under our policy, as well as currency inconvertibility. Next slide. I'm going to go through quickly three kind of different variations of our credit insurance. This first one, Express Insurance, as the Sba Export Express loan is geared towards a smaller need. This is also geared towards this smaller need and those that are new to exporting on open payment terms. And what we do in this case on this policy is we do all the work for you. Give us the name of your foreign buyer, a couple of key points of information. We run the credit and everything at our expense. We cover 95% of the outstanding invoice. We can insure existing buyers, but we don't have to. Generally speaking, whole turnover policies, we have the expectation of insuring all of your credit, your credit receivables, your export receivables rather. There's no deductible, there's no application fee for this. And again, we approve the buyers that you bring into us. We have a 5-day turnaround about, and we cap this program at 10 buyers because again, this is kind of an entry to credit insurance, I'll say. Next slide. From here, you grow into our small business multi-buyer policy, or if you're not a small business, our general multi-buyer policy. Still offers the same 95% coverage, no deductible. We do require on this policy that you provide us some credit reports or some additional credit data on your buyer. You'll generally work with a broker that can provide this for you at a small fee, but you provide this to us, your rate reduces because we're not doing that work, and it's essentially the same as this other policy. However, as the Express policy. However, you can also get some authority to make credit decisions in-house up to a certain amount. So you don't have to come to us with every buyer that you're dealing with. Next slide. This is a single buyer policy. So the other multi-buyer policies are a policy for you as the exporter, and we plug in buyers as they come up, handling multiple buyers across that one policy. If you have a need to only insure one buyer, perhaps you have a credit insurance policy with another carrier, private carrier, and they can't offer limits, or they don't like the country in which you're exporting to, we can supplement that by issuing a single buyer policy. Since we have a concentration of risk on this policy, we cover 90% on this versus a 95 on the multi-buyer policy. It's an annual policy. You ship to them however many times you wish throughout the year. You pay as you go, the same as with the multi-buyer policy. So it's just a very focused policy, where the other is meant to have a greater spread of risk, and you're shipping to all of your buyers. Next. Some restrictions working with Exim Bank. We do have a U.S. content requirement. So 50% or greater must be U.S. content, or it's not eligible. We cannot support military or defense related products. We do have a limitation, a schedule, as Joe mentioned earlier. Our CLS, or country limitation schedule, can be found on our website. It can identify on that CLS, it identifies where we're open, where we're not open, or where there are some restrictions. We look for economic impact on our loans. So if, for example, we make widgets here in the US and you're selling a widget making machine abroad, and having that other country start making widgets would have a negative impact on our economy, we wouldn't be able to support that. So we look at those things. Next slide. We are open in over 180 countries. As I mentioned, our country limitation schedule is available at exim.gov. Next. And now we'll just open it up for questions. Joe and I will join for this.
Any questions? Okay. Joe, John Shu again. Is the STEP grant still available? If yes, where should I apply for it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, John?
Is STEP grant still available? If yes, where should I apply for it?
So you can go to the SBA website, sba.gov/STEP. And there you can get the website for Connecticut. I assume you're looking for Connecticut. And you can see the application requirements. Now, this year's Connecticut STEP has been fully utilized. The new program will open October 1st after our fiscal year ends September 30th. So for next year, you would have to apply after October 1st.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question. If I only working with 15% margins on large product orders, would requesting an export loan be practical based on cost of the loan? Did you get it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the company would have to do that analysis once they talk to their banker and understood what the costs are. But, given what the SBA guarantee fees for these programs, depending on the size of the loan, makes a difference. Because now if the loan is less than $350,000, there's no SBA guarantee fee. So I think it would make sense. I think each company has to do its own calculation. And I think that starts with a conversation with your lender, making sure they understand what you're trying to finance, and then understanding what their costs and interest rates are. But in general, the interest rates on SBA loans, those are negotiated between the company and the bank. But generally, they're consistent in reasonable rates.
Okay, what is the process of applying SBA export loan program? What is the process? Should I go to you, the SBA, or should I go to my lender?
No, you want to go to your lender. As I mentioned, SBA is not a direct lender, so you want to go to your lender. Again, be clear as to what you're looking to finance. And you can reference, again, based on this webinar, you may feel like, oh, an Export Express loan is perfect for me because I only need $100,000. I need a revolver in order to provide working capital for some export orders. So you could kind of lead the lender or just kind of talk specifics about what you need and see what they recommend. I work a lot with lenders, so if you feel like your lender, not every lender knows all the details of the export loans, you can reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to kind of coordinate this through your lender.
Okay, I think the question for Richard. Richard, what is the process of applying for export credit insurance? Should I go to Exim Bank or should I go to my lender?
Sure. So all of our applications are brought in, managed by our broker network. However, I would encourage you, if you're interested in export credit insurance, to contact me. This way we can review your needs, and I can point you to the appropriate broker. But from there, it's a very simple process that the broker will go through, ask some questions. Most of those questions will already have been answered by me when I relay the information. And we get a policy put in place generally inside 10 days.
Oh, thank you. What is the major difference between SBA export loan program and Exim Bank loan program? What is the advantage or disadvantage if I select SBA loan versus Exim Bank?
That's a great question. You, as the exporter, will typically not select a loan guarantee program. This is a program that is made for the banks. It's to incentivize them to make loans that they've historically not made because they're considered maybe higher risk. So our programs kind of speak to the needs of those lenders. For example, higher loan amounts, say over $2-3 million. Export focus will typically come to Exim Bank. Certainly not under that. Lenders typically choose SBA for those smaller loan sizes. And that's just a matter of them having more volume with SBA, being able to manage that portfolio of loans as well. But ultimately, it's going to be the lender that decides which guarantee program they utilize. So,
yeah, no, I agree. With SBA, again, we're capped at the $5 million maximums. If you're in the multi-million dollars of financing need and you qualify for Exim, it probably makes sense to do an Exim bank working capital, because then you can grow with them. With us, you would only be up to 5 million, and then you would need to go to Exim anyway. And then again, companies that may not be able to reach that 51% US content, or maybe they're involved in defense and military work. Those are eligible for SBA where they're not with Exim. So there's little differences, but again, talking through your lender, they can help you work through what's the best program for you. And if you feel like that your lender's not fully aware of these programs, certainly feel free to bring Rich or I in, and we'll help coordinate that communication.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions here. Burak, our speaker and the senior international trade counselor at the SCORE in New Haven. Burak, are you able to speak? He has some technical issues here, kicked out. See. Hello, Burak. Well, if not, let me speak on his behalf. Well, first, thank you for, we have over 100 registrants for the event for the past 6 series, from, global business management, global supply chain management, export compliance, Incoterms, and trade finance, all these topics we covered from A to Z. But that's the basic training. It is a joint effort, by, he's able to talk by SBA and New Haven SCORE chapter, and also hosted by New Haven Public Library, which is a great, partner in the past for hosting SB and SCORE, events, especially for this series of expert webinars. We appreciate your participating, and I understand Bula is a senior international trade counselor. He already get a lot of leads from the training. We like to follow up with you. Any question, feel free to contact us. You can also go to library, talk to Jennifer Rose, asking for SBA contact person, Ray and Joe, too many Joes here, and myself and Bulat are also available. Oh, he's online. Can you hear me? Yes. Bulat,
Can you hear me, Dan?
Your turn now. Okay, boss.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. First of all, let me thank everyone. John, especially you and Jennifer at the New Haven Library. Wonderful presentators. They've done a very good job. I've known them, both of them. They did a really good job today. We have covered quite a bit. We had a total, according to my calculation, 217 people attended our 6 workshops, which is a record. Our previous record was 190, but we managed to get more than that. You want me to tell them what we covered, recap all 6 workshops that we did, John, or what you want to do? John?
Yes.
You want me to recap all the 6?
Yeah, whatever it's your call. You still have 5-6 minutes. About Richard's here. Joe is here.
Yeah, Richard
very well. Richard,
good man. I like him. His presentation always been fantastic. Tom Malloy is our broker. I recommend, my client, score client, I recommend Tom Malloy to them. So is he still with you or no?
Go ahead. Yeah, okay. We do have a good comment from a client. It has been a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for your time, attention to detail. So helpful and very much appreciated. Hopefully, next year we can do that. We invite Richard and Joe again, come to the community college or library to meet with the people in person as we did, because due to the pandemic, we felt that it is a little bit safer to do it online. Go ahead, Burak. I think you're on and off.
All right, sir. At the school, we can help you. We are funded by Small Business Administration, as you know. We can do whatever. We can do a one-on-one counseling. I could come and train your employee at your workplace free of charge, no charge. SCORE don't charge. So please, anybody tell you SCORE charge is not true. We do everything. Would you like to discover new market? We can help you to do that. Are you seeking idea to boost your export sales and marketing dollar? We could do that. We can sit down with you, give you one-to-one attention. We can do a whole group. Like I'm in the process of doing export classes starting in fall. I have so far 12 people already signed up. So this will be based on a book, it'll be 16 seminars like that. I will ask a few of you to come as our guest and make a presentation. And we're looking forward to it. I mean, SCORE, we only just don't do export. We have other subject that we have a 42 certified business mentor, we call them, from different fields, finance, accounting, legal, whatever. The SCORE can help you for free of charge. We don't charge anything. And if you come to me, whatever you need, we can help you with. I have been in export business over 50 years. So believe you me, I've seen all. I've seen them all in African continent, Asian continent, Pacific continent, you name it. I've been there, so I can help you. And we have a nice people here. Richard looks smiling. We have a Joe, we have a John. We can help you. That's what we're all about, to help you. We are here to help you. I hope you had a great workshop. So we did very good. I'm very happy. Richard, go ahead, say something. I know you're dying to say something.
Richard?
I'm sorry, yeah. Joe, I apologize. Bharat, yeah, we've worked with you for a number of years now, so it's been great presenting with you. Unfortunately, Joe and I do have to leave. We're getting kicked out of the conference room that we reserved now. But invite everybody to reach out to us with any questions they might have, or as your export business evolves. John, thanks so much for having both of us.
Yeah, John did a good job. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Rose, for hosting, Rose and Jennifer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for a great presentation.
Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you all.
year.
Thank you all for attending. Thank you all participating. Presentation.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rose?
Yep.
All right.
I have like 19. How many on the Facebook?
I will check and I will email it to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
please. I have to give a breakdown for total
Thank you. Bye-bye.
attendance for the June. I mean, May I already given to them. I have to give to our SCORE total attendance. So that includes Facebook. I would appreciate it if you can.
Sure, I will check. Just takes a minute.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know how else to thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice night.
You, John. Thank you, John.